Hey, welcome back. I hope those last couple videos were very beneficial. That's some great information that you really need to take to heart. One, the concept of proximity is power. And two, who are you spending your time with? As Jim Rohn says, you're the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. So really take a look at who you're spending your time with. Are they helping you to get to where you really want to go? This video, I wanted to start with a quote. The more you read, the more things you know. The more you learn, the more places you'll go. Dr. Seuss quote. What I want to talk about is personal development. And right now, if you're an athlete or if you're an athletic team watching this right now, you might be thinking, okay, personal development, this one's not applicable to us. Don't go there. This is applicable to you just as much as anyone else. The reason I say that, let's take studying books, reading books. The things that you'll study as a CEO or a manager or an entrepreneur are going to be different than what you need to be reading as an athlete or a coach or something like that, but it's no less important. What I want you to think about is what you're studying in your personal development. As an athlete, I study these things too. There are great athletic books to learn from on things like we're talking about, on mindset, on mindfulness, on leadership, on all these different things. So don't dismiss it thinking that it's not applicable to you, because it really is. So what I want to do is I want to go through some of the things I just want you to incorporate to help make this a habit. Now, just looking at my own personal development plans over the years, I remember when it was actually one of my bosses at the bank that kind of got me into reading and got me studying more. And I had one position at the bank that I was doing a lot of traveling. And that's when I started listening to Tony Robbins for the first time. And I remember one time that I was driving and he talked about, at one point he decided he wanted to read 700 books in a year or something like that. And to myself, I thought, well, if he did it or not, if that's something that helped him get where he is, maybe it's something I need to incorporate. And so I started reading like crazy. And it would be, I'd read a book, off to the next one, read the next book, off to the next one. But over time, I've really changed the habits that I have on how I read. And so what I want you to do, first of all, I'm going to go through a few different steps on what you're reading and how to go through this process that will hopefully help you to create some habits and create a personal development plan for yourself. So the first one is, what are you reading and why? Now, when we look at reading, there's 2 ways to do it. You can read a book or you can listen to a book. Some people absolutely hate reading. If that's your case, don't feel guilty about it. Get an Audible account, get whatever it is, so that you can listen to your books. Personally, I do both, and I'll talk more about that in a bit. But what are you reading and why are you reading it? So just like I was talking about before, if you're an athlete and you're looking to get to the next level, there's things, we talk about basketball all the time. There's some great Michael Jordan books I've read. There's some great Kobe Bryant books. There's so many books out there. I go down and look at my shelf and I've got a lot of basketball books in there, and a lot of them are just autobiographies or biographies, and learning about their lives can help you. Now there's other books that are talking about mindfulness, talking about leadership, all these different things that are very applicable to what you're doing. So be intentional about what you're reading. Now, with that in mind, looking at what I said, when I started listening to Tony Robbins and heard that he was going to read 700 books, I just started flying through the books, whatever I could get my hands on, and I'd read one off to the next. Well, I came across a concept from Darren Hardy that he talked about: learn less, study more. And I think this is something to really pay attention to, because it really is something that I think will be beneficial to help you as you're trying to study and learn on specific topics that'll help you to get to the next level. So what he suggests, and he actually has a plan. He calls his 1-1-3-5-1 30-35 plan. And that goes into a long explanation of what that is. But I've taken some of the ideas from that plan for how I want it to be implemented in my plan. And what I do is I break it into a quarter of a year. So we look at the quarter of the year that we're in as we begin it. Look at the things that are most important to you at that moment. and the things that you're trying to learn, the things that you're trying to improve at. And pick 5 books. Find 5 books that you can really dig into on that topic. On top of that, get 3 audios. If you're not reading, you're only doing audios, go ahead, get 8 audios. And then also 1 course or 1 seminar on that topic. And that way, for that quarter, you're specifically focused on that one topic, and you're just digging in and learning as much as you can about that. That way, when you're reading, it might be one of the things I do. If I read a book and I really like it, I'll also get the audio. Or if I have the audio and I really like it, I'll get the book. And that way, the more you read it, the more you're going to comprehend. For example, in module 4, where I talked about fixed mindsets and growth mindsets, I talked a lot about Carol Dweck and the research she's done. The first time I heard her was actually on an Audible book, and then I bought her book. So I listened to the book, I read the book. After that, I listened to it again and I read it again. So I've gone through that book at this point 4 or 5 times between reading and listening. And the more you go into it, and when you're studying it, you get new things out of it every time. And there's another way to get a lot more out of it that I'll talk about in a minute. But that's how you structure the plan. 5 books, 3 audios, 1 course or 1 seminar, whatever it is that you can go to during that quarter on that topic. Now, the next part, one thing about myself, if you've ever watched any of my podcasts on video or anything like that, I often do them in my office, and you'll see my bookshelf. And I have a lot of books in my office. And they're all books that I've read. And when I first started getting my library built up, I've always been very proud of my library, but I wanted my books to just be pristine. I wouldn't write in them, I wouldn't bend any corners, I wouldn't do anything. I wanted them to be perfect. But as time has gone on, I've really studied more. And so one of the things you need to do, you need to highlight, you need to mark them up, you need to dog ear them, you need to really absorb them. And one of the things that has been very beneficial to me is I can be working with a client, I can be on a call, I can be in our mastermind, whatever. And when a topic comes up that I know I've got a book that has something about that topic, I can grab it, and usually within less than a minute, I can find it in there because it's highlighted and underlined, and I can reference it. And so the more you do that, the more you take notes, the more you highlight, the more you underline all those things, you're going to absorb the material that much better. And so I really encourage you to use the books. What they're for is to learn and absorb. So don't be afraid to mark them up, dog ear, whatever you have to do. From there, this is the part I said I was going to add on, is teach it. For a concept that you really want to learn, read it and absorb it as if you're going to teach it. When you have to teach material, you see it in a much different way, and you're going to learn so much more. The teacher is always the one that learns the most. So either teach it to someone in your family, whatever it is, look for an opportunity. You know, one of the things that I used to do in one of my companies is we had something we called our education plan. And depending on the position you're in, I had certain books that I wanted you to read, and we'd always add to it. And so if I gave you a book that you were assigned for the month, you would read that, and then at the end of the month, we would have a company-wide meeting. Everyone would be on their Zoom calls, and we would have that person teach everyone else in the company what the book was about, how it was applicable to us in work, and how it was applicable to us outside of work as well. And we all learned from it. But that person that was teaching that was always the one that learned the most. And so look for opportunities to teach, or even if you're not going to teach it, study it and read it with the intention of teaching so that you could teach and you're going to get more out of it. And then another part that I actually talked about it on a podcast at one time was to get excited about it. And the thing that clued me into this was one time I was laying in bed reading. My wife was asleep, everyone else in the house was asleep, and I just had my nightlight on. And I was actually reading Traffic Secrets from Russell Brunson. And there was a concept in there that I got real excited about. So excited about waking up the next morning and implementing it that I couldn't sleep. And I ended up in the middle of the night getting up and writing a bunch of stuff out and putting my ideas on paper just to brain dump so I could forget about it and go to sleep. But when you get excited about the things that you're studying and the things that you're reading, you're going to be that much more able to understand how they work, how you're going to implement them, and how it's going to impact what you're doing. So that's kind of the outline of what I suggest on your personal development. And there's so much more to it. There's so many opportunities right now to learn, whether it's through reading, through Audible books, through podcasts. There's so much out there, whether it's buying it or it's free. There's amazing amount of information. So figure out what that topic is that you really want to dig into for a quarter, and you can just become an expert in that topic. And as you do that, a big part of it is we can bring in a lot of information, but what good is it if we never implement anything? We can be the smartest person on a subject, but if we never put it into practice, what good is it? You know, if you're an athlete and you're studying a certain aspect of your sport, but you never apply it to your sport, it hasn't done anything for you. So take a look at these things that you're studying, that you're reading about, that you're putting into your personal development plan, and make sure that you're implementing it as well and applying it. But make this a habit. You know, it doesn't have to be a lot. Schedule a time. Morning is a great time to look at it. Schedule 30 minutes. Do 30 minutes of reading a day. If you travel to work, 30 minutes, whatever your travel time is, of listening to a good audio book or listening to a podcast or something, and schedule those things in so that it's a habit and that you're doing it on a consistent basis. The other thing is, maybe it's not a time thing. Maybe it's, I'm going to read 10 pages of a good book every day. Whatever it is, make it a habit and don't skip. Don't make excuses. Don't allow yourself to put it aside and not do it. Make it a habit and make sure you're doing it. When you make an investment into your own personal development, you'll definitely have the payoff to account for it. So thank you, and we'll see you in the next video.